Today I wanted to talk about trigger finger because I had a new member in the questions ask about trigger finger and what they can do about it. And it's funny because I literally, just before I came live, I was talking to a potential patient who wanted to come see me for treatment of trigger finger. So what is trigger finger? Trigger finger is one of those really cranky diagnoses, and I posted a picture of, how the finger gets stuck like this, all right, and it gets to the point where you can't actually straighten it actively. You then have to take your hand and pull it up and straighten it that way. So what it is that there's two, I'm just going to give you a little anatomy overview of what trigger finger is that there's tendons that come down. There's two tendons that come down. One comes down and bends the middle joint here, and then one comes down and bends the tip. Hey, Natasha. All right, and what happens is that along here, there's like these little sleeves that those two tendons need to slide through. I have a picture. I actually printed off a picture while I was at work yesterday. So I don't know if you guys can see, but here are those little sleeves that the tendon has to slide through. So what happens is that typically the tendon that comes to this joint here is the one that gets involved, and it gets a little thick in this area. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. What can happen in the hand is incredibly complicated because one thing is dependent upon another thing. They all work together, but then they also all work against each other at times. So you can get a little bit of an inflammation on the tendon. When it gets really bad, you can actually get a little nodule that you can feel. And what happens is you come down and you make a full fist, that tendon glides through its furthest amount, and then that nodule slips through that little sheath there. And then when you go to straighten out, it can't get back through the sleeping bag. Essentially, I call these little sleeping bags. It's easier for my patients to understand that way. So then your finger gets stuck because the tendon is stuck on the other side of the sleeping bag, right, of that little thing. So then it can't get back through. So people will have to pull it out and it gets painful. Now, if you let this go for a really long time, you can actually get contractures of the joint where you can't fully extend it, even if you wanted to, because the joint gets stiff because it's been stuck in this position for a long time. I have had patients that have let it go for a really long time, and they come in and they will have gotten an injection, which, will help, but then their motion isn't very good because their joint has contracted. So that's one of the things that you always want to be careful of. This patient that I just got off the phone with this morning has only had it for a week now. So she's going to be super easy to treat because she hasn't had it for that long. I have another patient right now who had trigger fingers for 2.5 years. And so she's taken a little bit longer. So what can you do for this trigger finger in the first place? So I always, when I have patients with this, there's different ways to treat it. You can treat it conservatively with therapy. And in therapy, what I typically do is give you exercises that are specific so that you're not gliding the tendon through that sleeve and irritating it and creating more inflammation in there. So there are very specific exercises to do, and then there's very specific exercises not to do. All right, so this kind of constant squeezing is going to irritate it. So like this patient that just called me, she had been squeezing a ball, like a stress ball, and that's probably one of the things that irritated her, is that she kept doing this against resistance, which inflamed things. So you want to avoid any kind of thing like this. This kind of motion is actually an okay kind of motion because you're not taking the finger and pulling it all the way down, which glides that tendon through that sleeve that you don't want it to go through. The other thing that I always do with patients is that, considering that the tendon is in through here, but the muscle belly is up and through here, a lot of times the patients that I have found have had soft tissue issues up in their forearm and a lot of tightness. So I always want to work on the forearm tissues as well as the issues that are down in the palm. So certain things that can help are, soft tissue mobilization. I will do some cupping in the palm right over that nodule, if they have a nodule, to kind of break up some of the adhesions that are in there and take out some of the swelling, some tissue mobilization, some Grasslin technique to kind of calm down and push out and break up the adhesions that are on that tendon as well. And one of the things that actually works really well is a splint. And I made this the other day and I brought it with me. These thermoplast splints are custom made to people. Hi, Bruce, how are you? They are custom made for people. You do not want to leave them in a heated environment in direct sun or anything, because they will melt and change shape to you. So I am in my car, obviously, and going to the beach with my kids. So I'm going to have to take this and put it in the cooler, because otherwise I'll come back and it will have melted. But this is a splint that I made quick yesterday just to show you guys. I can't remember. I made it on my ring finger. Oh, my rings are on. I didn't wear my rings yesterday. I was single yesterday, apparently. Today I'm married. Anyway, so there we go. So what it does is it just kind of goes on. I strap it on. So it comes down into my palm. All right. And it's just like a little ring on the back. You could bedazzle it if you really wanted to. And then what I can do is I can still bend. I can bend where I need to bend. So I can still grab a pen if I needed to. I could still do certain things. But what it's preventing me from doing is bending from this big knuckle. And when you come down into that full fist, that's when you tend to get triggered more often than not. And you get that full glide of the tendon, which gets irritated. So these ones are super helpful in calming things down. The key is to calm down the inflammation. Treat it as quickly as you can. Don't wait, because the longer you wait with a trigger finger, the harder it is to treat, and the longer it will take to do it conservatively. Now, there are some people that opt for an injection. There are some people that just want the quick fix. I'm not a huge fan of injections, unless you've had it for a really long time. And even then, I like to do conservative treatment in general. But trigger fingers can be a little bit stubborn at times, so some people do go on for injection. And if you go see a hand surgeon, they're going to offer you that immediately, because that's what's in their toolkit. Their toolkit is surgery and injections. That's sort of what they feel is quick fix, and it will stop the triggering pretty quickly. And the injections can last anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, 9 months sometimes. But typically what happens is people will go back for another injection and another injection, and then they'll end up with surgery just because they've had that needle continually going in there. And they haven't changed the way that they do things either. So a lot of it is just sort of figuring out what's going on. And for musicians, some of this could be your technique and the position that you're in at your instrument, and what might be stressors that are occurring within those tendons while you're actually playing that could be contributing to the process of developing that trigger finger. So you always want to look at technique for musicians and see what's going on to see if that might be a contributing factor or not. But those are some specific ways that you can work on it. And the splint really is helpful. Again, depending on the instrument, you may or may not be able to play with a splint on. But avoiding certain things and looking at technique is a good thing, and then calming things down as quickly as you possibly can, and getting in with a hand therapist to make sure that you're doing the right things and not doing the things that are contributing factors is always really, really good. So, I think that's all I have to say about trigger finger. If anybody has any questions, please comment below. And for the person that wanted me to talk about trigger finger, if you have any other questions, please either personal message me, or you can comment in the comments below. I'm happy to answer any other questions.